Ranking Member Cotton.
Dr. Burnett, do you have a financial interest in the legalization of marijuana?
I do not.
You do not?
I do not at this time.
Through tribe companies, you're not invested in the marijuana business?
That company is no longer operational.
Okay. Mr. Cook.
Sir.
Senator Durbin said in his opening statement a scenario that is often described as someone being arrested in prison for having a dime bag of marijuana in their glove compartment or a joint in their glove compartment. In your many decades of prosecuting cases, how often was it the case that someone is prosecuted and sent to jail for having a dime bag or a joint in their glove compartment?
Well, thank you for asking that, because I've heard that throughout the remarks this morning. Never is the answer to your question in federal court. Federal court, we've focused on, consistently have focused on high-level drug traffickers involved in violent criminal activity, international drug trafficking activity, gang activity, and I could go on. But the short answer to your question is never.
Okay. So in none of those cases that I cited in my opening statement, you're confident that a federal charge brought against someone who was merely possessing an amount of marijuana likely to be used for personal consumption?
No, in fact, the possession cases, if you look at the Sentencing Commission statistics on this, what you'll see is the possession case, simple possession cases that now exist in the federal system, all stem from seizures, almost all stem from seizures that occurred in border districts and involved, on average, 48 pounds, not small, simple possession cases.
By border districts, you mean our southern border?
I do, sir. I mean California, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona.
And you say 48 pounds on average?
On average.
How many joints could you make out of 48 pounds of marijuana?
Outside my area of expertise, many.
Tens of thousands?
Tens of thousands.
Okay.
I would think.
Mr. Berenson, you ignited some controversy when you wrote your book in 2019, and you said in your statement that you were surprised when marijuana advocates and certain media outlets attacked you for pointing out that, according to all of the scientific research, marijuana is not harmless. Why do you think your book provoked such a strong reaction?
I think that people have waged a campaign to legalize for a long time, and if you hear the statements in this room, it's as if it's 1975. I mean, cannabis is, as a practical matter, essentially legal in most of the United States right now, it's culturally promoted. It's very, very unlikely, I think, that trend is going to reverse, and certainly in large blue states. And yet the industry seems to see itself as this outside countercultural force, and reacts extremely strongly when you try to discuss the real downsides to this. I mean, we hear about a tremendous number of cannabis arrests. I would point out that even if cannabis were fully legalized on the federal level, there'd be a lot of cannabis arrests. And the reason I know that is because there's a ton of arrests for alcohol in the United States. Driving under the influence, alcohol possession in public. There will be a lot of cannabis arrests under any circumstances in the United States. The question is whether we want a legalized, commercialized industry that's promoting the use of this drug and is doing everything it can to play down the very real mental health consequences that come with it.
You used two verbs there, legalized and commercialized. I want to contrast that with the experience that Mr. Cook had in his many years of prosecuting cases with decriminalizing. Mr. Cook, do you think it's fair to say that many jurisdictions, in effect, decriminalized the possession of marijuana many years ago, in the sense that though it was illegal to possess small amounts of marijuana, it was not a law enforcement priority to arrest and charge mere possession of small amounts?
That's absolutely correct.
And that's very different, Mr. Berenson, from legalizing it, which makes it a legal act to possess any amount, and then taking a step further to commercialize it.
Yes, I mean there is a middle ground here. Decriminalization, I think, removes a lot of the harms that might come with arrests, and I think most Americans, if not practically all Americans, would agree you shouldn't go to jail or serve prison time for having a joint. The question is whether you want an industry.
You mentioned alcohol. People who sell beer, wine, and liquor for a living make a pretty good living, don't they?
I think so, sure.
There's a congressman from Maryland who makes a lot of money selling wine through Total Wine. And is that partly because the alcohol industry, in effect, creates a kind of legalized monopolies based on the 21st Amendment?
I mean, I'm not an expert on the structure of the alcohol industry. What I can say is that the commercialization of cannabis in states that have legalized, such as California, has proven actually quite problematic because the community of users is very, very used to buying illicit cannabis and will happily do so at a lower price than the commercial industry. And so in California, for example, the industry is now complaining that it cannot compete with the illegal market and is asking for tax breaks, and eventually may wind up asking for outright subsidies. So you wind up with the worst of both worlds. You have a commercial industry that's going to promote its product legally on billboards and elsewhere, and you have all the problems of the illicit market. This is one reason why there continues to be a ton of violence associated with the illicit cannabis industry in California and in other states that have legalized.
Thank you.